The stars belonged to the Catharan now. Every world, every species, every life form in the known galaxy bowed to their rule. But the Catharan did not rule through strength alone. They ruled through fear. Overseer Jakarn stood in the grand hall of the sacred vaults, his forearms crossed behind his back as he watched the newest shipment of slaves shuffle past. Valorians, mostly. Small, blue-skinned creatures with large eyes that seemed too tired to hope anymore. They knew their place in the universe. Everyone did. The reason for their submission sat behind him in the vault. Ancient artifacts, terrible weapons, evidence of the monsters that once threatened to destroy all life in the galaxy. The Catharan claimed they alone had defeated these creatures. They alone stood between civilization and chaos. This lie had worked for 3,000 years. Jakarn believed it too. He had studied the old texts. He had seen the artifacts with his own eyes. The story spoke of beings called the Renderers, creatures that could not be reasoned with. They adapted to any situation. They made weapons from anything. They never stopped fighting. The galaxy had barely survived them. A junior officer approached him. His scales shimmered with nervous energy. "Overseer, we have found something strange in the outer sectors." Jakarn turned. "Strange how?" "A derelict ship, very old. The design is unknown to our databases." This was interesting. The Catharan had records of every ship design in the galaxy. Unknown meant ancient. Ancient meant valuable. "Bring it in. I want to examine it personally." The ship arrived 3 days later. It was small by Catharan standards. The metal was strange, not corroded despite floating in space for who knew how long. Jakarn walked through its corridors with his team. Everything was sized for creatures much smaller than his kind. They found writing on the walls, symbols that made no sense. And then they found the cryo chamber. Inside was a single being, bipedal, hair on its head. Soft skin, it looked almost harmless. "Is it alive?" Jakarn asked. The science officer checked the readings. "Yes, the chamber is still functioning. This creature has been asleep for approximately 800 standard years. 800 years. Before the Catharan Empire. Before the current galactic order." Jakarn felt his heart beat faster. This was a living fossil. A creature from the age of legends. "Wake it," he commanded. The process took hours. The team had to carefully reverse the freezing process. Finally, the chamber hissed open. The creature inside took a gasping breath. Its eyes opened. They were brown, strangely expressive. Marcus Chen woke up to a nightmare. The last thing he remembered was entering the cryopod on the colony ship New Horizon. Earth had sent them to find a new home among the stars. Now he stared at alien faces, tall creatures with 4 arms and scales covering their bodies. They did not look friendly. He tried to speak, but his throat was dry. One of the aliens made sounds he did not understand. They seemed to be discussing him. Marcus felt panic rising. Where was his crew? Where was the ship going? What happened to Earth? Jakarn watched the creature carefully. It seemed confused, afraid, good. Fear made things controllable. He spoke into his translator. "What species are you?" Marcus heard the words in his mind. Some kind of translation technology. He swallowed hard. "Human. I am human." "From Earth." The aliens froze. Jakarn felt something cold move through his body. Human. That word. He had seen it before. Deep in the archives. In the forbidden sections. In the texts about the Renderers, he kept his voice calm. "Take him to a secure chamber. Give him food and water. I must consult the archives immediately." Marcus was led through corridors that seemed designed for giants. Everything was too big, too strange. He was placed in a room that looked comfortable enough. There was something like a bed, a table, food that smelled odd but not terrible, but the door was locked. He was a prisoner. Jakarn spent the night in the deepest archives. The records were encrypted, protected. He needed special authorization just to read them. What he found made his blood run cold. Humans were not just any species. They were the Renderers, the monsters, the terror that had nearly destroyed the galaxy 3,000 years ago. The Catharan had not defeated them through strength. They had used biological weapons, targeted viruses that killed humans specifically. They had hunted down every last colony ship, every last settlement. They had wiped humans from the galaxy, or so they thought. And now one sat in his facility, alive, awake, a living weapon from the age of nightmares. The supreme hierarch would need to know, but Jakarn hesitated. This human seemed weak, confused, perhaps not dangerous. Perhaps they could study it, learn from it. Keep it as a curiosity. After all, what harm could one human do against the might of the Catharan Empire? It was the first of many mistakes the Catharan would make. But Jakarn did not know that yet. He only saw a specimen, a prize, a living relic from a dead age. He did not see the monster. Not yet. Marcus spent his first week trying to understand where he was. The aliens brought him food 3 times a day. Strange fruits that tasted sweet, meat that was too chewy, water that seemed fine. They watched him eat through cameras mounted in the corners. He could feel their eyes on him always. The room was comfortable in a cold way. The bed adapted to his body. The temperature was controlled, but it was still a prison. The door would not open. The walls were too thick to hear anything outside. He was alone with his thoughts and his fears. On the 8th day, someone new arrived. She was smaller than the other aliens. Blue skin, large eyes, only 2 arms. She carried a tablet and looked nervous. When she spoke, her voice came through the translator as soft and careful. Hello. My name is Lyra. I am a scientist. I have been assigned to study you. Marcus sat up. Finally, someone who might answer questions. Study me? Why? Where am I? What happened to my ship? Lyra sat down across from him. She kept her distance. Your ship was found drifting in space. You have been asleep for 800 years. The galaxy has changed much since then. 800 years. The number hit Marcus like a punch. Everyone he knew was dead. Earth itself might be gone. He felt his hands start to shake. Lyra noticed. I am sorry, she said quietly. I know this must be difficult. Something in her voice made Marcus look up. She sounded genuine, almost kind. What happened to Earth? To humans? Lyra hesitated. I do not know. The records are unclear. Your species is not in any current database. You are the first human I have ever seen. Over the following weeks, Lyra came every day. She asked Marcus questions about human biology, about Earth, about how his body worked. He answered most of them. It gave him something to do. And Lyra was patient. She never seemed threatening. She brought him books to read, videos to watch. Slowly, he began to learn about the galaxy he now lived in. The Catharan ruled everything. Thousands of worlds, millions of species. They maintained control through fear of something called the monsters, ancient creatures that had tried to destroy all life. The Catharan claimed they had saved the galaxy from these beings. Marcus found it strange, the way everyone spoke about these monsters, like they were demons from a nightmare, but no one could describe them clearly. The records were sealed. Only the Catharan had access to the truth. One day Lyra arrived looking troubled. She glanced at the cameras before speaking. I need to tell you something, but it is dangerous for both of us. Marcus leaned forward. What is it? I have been researching the monsters. The Catharan story does not make sense. There are gaps in the records, things that have been erased. I managed to access some old artifacts from the sacred vaults. I ran tests on them. She pulled out her tablet. Her hands shook slightly. The DNA I found, it matches yours. Marcus felt his blood run cold. What are you saying? The monsters, the creatures everyone fears. I think they were humans. The room seemed to spin. Marcus tried to process this. Humans were the monsters? The terror that controlled the galaxy through fear? It made no sense. Humans were explorers, scientists. They had problems, sure, but they were not monsters. Are you sure? He asked. The DNA does not lie, but there is more. I found fragments of old records. 3,000 years ago, humans were expanding through the galaxy. Fast, aggressive. They did not ask permission. They took what they wanted. Other species tried to stop them. They could not. Humans adapted too quickly, learned too fast, turned every situation to their advantage. Marcus thought about Earth history, about the wars, the conquests, the way humans had spread across their own planet, sometimes with peace, often with violence. He felt sick. What happened to them, to us? He asked. The Catharan used biological weapons, viruses designed to target human DNA specifically. They killed every human they could find, destroyed colony ships, burned settlements. It was genocide, but why lie about it? Why create this story about monsters? Lyra looked at him with sad eyes. Because fear is power. The Catharan took the most terrifying enemy they ever faced and turned it into a legend. As long as everyone believes the monsters might return, they will obey. They will pay tribute. They will accept slavery, all to avoid facing the monsters again. Marcus stood up and walked to the wall. His mind was racing. He was not just a prisoner. He was evidence, living proof that could destroy the Catharan's entire system of control. No wonder they kept him locked away. Does Jakarn know? He asked. I believe so. He has access to the deepest archives, but he has told no one else. I think he wants to keep you as a secret, a private specimen. Marcus turned back to her. Why are you telling me this? Why risk it? Lyra stood. She looked small and tired. Because I am a slave too. My people were conquered by the Catharan 2 generations ago. We work in their facilities. We serve their needs. All because we are afraid of the monsters coming back. But if the monsters were just another species that the Catharan destroyed, then everything we believe is a lie. What do you want me to do? Marcus asked. I do not know yet, but I needed you to understand what you are, what you represent. You are not just a curiosity. You are proof that the Catharan Empire is built on lies. After Lyra left, Marcus could not sleep. He paced his cell thinking about everything, about the humans who had come before him, about the fear they had caused, about the empire that had risen from their ashes. He wondered what those early humans had been like. Warriors, colonizers, or just people trying to survive in a hostile galaxy. He thought about Earth, about humanity's long history of both great kindness and terrible cruelty. Maybe the galaxy had been right to fear them. Maybe humans really were monsters. Or maybe they were just doing what every species did, trying to grow, trying to survive, trying to find a place among the stars. The next day, something happened that changed everything. Marcus was doing exercises in his cell when alarms started blaring. Red lights flashed. He heard running footsteps in the corridor outside, shouting in languages he did not understand. Then the door to his cell opened. A Catharan guard stood there. He was not looking at Marcus. He was looking at his tablet with panic in his eyes. Behind him, Marcus could see smoke, fire, chaos. Marcus did not think. He just moved. Years of training from Earth kicked in. He grabbed a food tray from his table and swung it at the guard's head. The alien went down hard. Marcus took the guard's weapon, a strange energy pistol. He had no idea how to use it, but he would figure it out. He ran into the corridor. The facility was under attack. But by who? Other aliens fired weapons at each other. Explosions rocked the walls. Marcus kept low and moved fast. He needed to find Lyra. She was the only friend he had in this place. The only one who might help him escape. And deep in the archives, Jakarn watched security footage of the human moving through the chaos. The way Marcus adapted, the way he learned to use the weapon in seconds, the way he fought with nothing but instinct and improvisation. Jakarn felt his heart sink. He finally understood. The legends were true. Humans really were the monsters, and he had just let one loose. Marcus found Lyra in the science wing. She was helping injured slaves escape through a service corridor. When she saw him, her eyes went wide. You are free. How? The attack. My door opened. What is happening? Lyra grabbed his arm. Rebel slaves from the lower levels. They have been planning this for months. Come. We must leave before the Catharan regain control. They ran through corridors filled with smoke and chaos. Marcus helped carry wounded aliens, species he had never seen before. All of them slaves. All of them fighting for freedom. Something stirred in his chest, a feeling he had not felt in a long time. Purpose. They made it to a hidden transport ship. Dozens of escaped slaves packed into the cargo hold. As the ship launched, Catharan fighters pursued them. Marcus watched through a viewport as energy blasts lit up the space around them. The pilot was good, but the Catharan were better. They were being herded toward a dead end. Let me see the controls, Marcus said suddenly. The pilot looked at him. You know how to fly? No, but I can learn. Marcus studied the panel. It was alien, but the basic principles were similar to what he knew from Earth. Thrust, direction, weapons. He saw a pattern in how the Catharan were moving. They expected the transport to run, to try to escape in a straight line. Turn toward them, Marcus said. What? That is suicide. Trust me. Turn toward them. Full speed. The pilot hesitated, then obeyed. The transport spun and accelerated directly at the nearest Catharan fighter. The fighter hesitated, confused. That moment of confusion was all Marcus needed. Now dive. Use their ship as a shield. The transport dove beneath the fighter. The other Catharan ships held their fire, afraid of hitting their own craft. In that brief window, the transport jumped to hyperspace. They escaped. The slaves stared at Marcus. Lyra looked at him with something like awe. How did you know that would work? Marcus shrugged. I did not. But they expected us to run. Humans have a saying. When someone expects you to zig, you zag. They arrived at a hidden base on a dead moon. The rebellion was larger than Marcus had imagined. Hundreds of escaped slaves. Multiple species working together. They had weapons, ships, resources stolen from the Catharan over years of careful planning. But they were still afraid. Still waiting for the Catharan to crush them. That night, Lyra brought Marcus to meet the rebel leaders. They sat in a dark room around a flickering hologram map. The leaders looked tired, desperate. This is Marcus, Lyra said. He is human. The room went silent. One of the leaders, a massive creature with gray skin and tusks, stood up. Human, like the monsters? The monsters were humans, Lyra said firmly. And the Catharan have been lying about them for 3,000 years. She explained everything she had learned. The DNA evidence, the hidden records, the truth about the genocide. Some of the leaders looked skeptical. Others looked angry, but they all listened. If this is true, the gray leader said slowly, then everything we believe is wrong. The Catharan do not protect us from the monsters. They use the fear of monsters to control us. Exactly, Marcus said. He stood up. I am not a monster. I am just a man. But I understand why your ancestors feared humans. We are good at one thing, survival. We adapt. We learn. We find ways to win even when we should lose. That scared the Catharan, so they killed us all. Almost all. Another leader spoke. What do you want from us? Nothing. But I can help you. I can teach you how to fight like humans, how to think like humans. The Catharan expect you to be afraid. They expect you to run. They expect you to follow their rules. I can show you how to break those expectations. Over the following weeks, Marcus worked with the rebels. He taught them tactics from Earth, guerrilla warfare, psychological operations, how to use the enemy's strengths against them, how to turn any situation to their advantage. The rebels learned quickly. They were hungry for this knowledge, hungry for hope. Meanwhile, word spread across the Catharan Empire. A human had been found, a living monster. Some said he was leading the rebels. Others said he was just a myth. But the slaves in the Catharan facilities whispered his name. They began to hope. If the monsters were not so terrible, maybe the Catharan were not so strong. Jakarn felt his carefully ordered world crumbling. He had reported the human to the Supreme Hierarch. The response had been immediate and terrifying. Find the human. Kill the human. Destroy all evidence. But it was too late. The truth was spreading, and Jakarn had begun to question everything he believed. He accessed the deepest archives again. Read the true history. The Catharan had not been heroes. They had been desperate. Humans had not been monsters. They had just been competition. The Catharan had chosen genocide because they were afraid of being conquered themselves. Everything else was propaganda. One night, Jakarn made a decision. He encrypted his access codes. He took copies of the historical records. And he left the Catharan capital in a small ship. If the Supreme Hierarch wanted to destroy the truth, then the truth needed protection. Even if that meant betraying his own people. He arrived at the rebel base 3 days later. The guards almost killed him on sight, but Marcus stopped them. Wait. Let him speak. Jakarn looked at the human who had destroyed his world. I have brought the truth. All of it, every record, every lie. The galaxy needs to know what the Catharan have done. Marcus studied him. Why? Because I was wrong. We were all wrong, and I cannot live with that lie anymore. That night they planned their next move. Not just an escape, not just survival, a revolution. They would broadcast the truth to every slave world. They would show the galaxy that the monsters were gone and the Catharan were liars. They would give every species a choice. Stay enslaved to fear or fight for freedom. Marcus looked at the assembled rebels. Different species, different worlds, but united in purpose. He thought about humanity, about all the mistakes his species had made, all the wars, all the cruelty, but also all the courage, all the times humans had stood up against impossible odds. Maybe this was his chance to show the galaxy the better side of humanity, the side that fought not for conquest but for justice, the side that said no to tyrants. The monster was waking up. But this time, the monster would fight for the right reasons. The broadcast went out on every frequency, to every slave world, to every Catharan facility. Jakarn stood before the camera, his forearms trembling, and confessed everything. The lies, the genocide, the 3,000 years of control through manufactured fear. And beside him stood Marcus, a living human, proof that the monsters had been nothing more than another species trying to survive. The galaxy erupted. On 40 worlds, slaves rose up against their Catharan masters. They had seen the truth. They had seen the human who fought not as a monster but as a liberator. The fear that had controlled them for so long began to crack, but the Catharan did not surrender easily. The Supreme Hierarch ordered total war. Every rebel world would burn. Every escaped slave would die, and the human would be captured and executed publicly to restore fear. They had defeated humans once before. They would do it again. The Catharan war fleet was massive, thousands of ships, weapons that could destroy planets. They moved toward the rebel territories like a wave of death. Marcus stood in the command center of the rebel base watching the sensors. The fleet would arrive in 2 days. The rebels had maybe 100 ships. They could not win a direct fight. We should evacuate, one of the rebel leaders said. Live to fight another day. No, Marcus said. If we run now, the revolution dies. Every species watching will think we gave up. We need to make a stand. A stand? Against that fleet? We will all die. Marcus smiled. It was not a kind smile. Maybe. But we will make them remember why their ancestors feared humans. Lyra, bring up the fleet formation data. Jakarn, I need the Catharan command protocols. Everyone else, gather around. I am going to teach you about asymmetric warfare. Over the next 2 days, Marcus worked without sleep. He studied every detail of Catharan military doctrine. He found the patterns, the assumptions, the rules they always followed. And then he planned to break every single one. The Catharan fleet arrived in perfect formation. Their admiral was confident. This would be a quick battle, a demonstration of power. The rebels would scatter and the human would fall into their hands. He did not expect the rebels to attack first. 30 small rebel ships jumped out of hiding and fired everything they had at the fleet's flagship. The damage was minimal. The flagship's shields held easily. The admiral laughed. This was suicide. He ordered the fleet to pursue and destroy the attackers. That was the mistake. The rebel ships led the Catharan fleet into the asteroid field surrounding the moon. The Catharan ships were large and powerful but not agile. They had to slow down to navigate the rocks. The rebel ships were small and fast. They danced between asteroids, firing quick shots and disappearing. This is pointless, the Catharan admiral said. They cannot hurt us with these tactics. But Marcus was not trying to hurt them. He was positioning them, drawing them deeper into the field, spreading them out, breaking their formation. And then the real attack began. Hundreds of modified mining charges hidden in the asteroids detonated simultaneously, not near the ships, near the asteroids themselves. The explosion sent massive rocks hurtling through space. The Catharan fleet found itself under bombardment from every direction. Ships collided with asteroids they could not avoid. Shields overloaded. Hulls cracked. Pull back, the admiral screamed. Reform outside the field. But retreating through an asteroid field while under attack was even harder than entering. More ships were damaged, some destroyed. The mighty Catharan fleet limped out of the field, having lost 30% of its forces, without landing a single significant hit on the rebels. Across the galaxy, slaves watched the battle on secret screens. They saw the impossible happen. The Catharan fleet defeated not by superior force but by cleverness, by tactics they had never encountered, by human thinking. More worlds began to rise up. The Supreme Hierarch was furious. Send the Special Weapons Division. Use the ancient arsenal. I do not care what it takes. That human dies. Now. Deep in the Catharan homeworld vaults, technicians opened sealed chambers. Inside were the weapons they had used 3,000 years ago. Bioweapons, viruses designed to kill humans, specifically humans. They had saved samples for exactly this moment. Insurance against the return of the monsters. Lyra discovered the plan through an intercepted communication. She ran to find Marcus. He was in the medical bay treating wounded rebels. She pulled him aside. They're going to use biological weapons. The same ones they used to kill your species. Marcus felt cold. He had known this might happen. The Catharan had done it before. Why not again? How long do we have? 2 days. Maybe 3. They are preparing deployment ships. Marcus thought hard. He could run, hide, maybe survive. But that would not stop the weapon. It would be released and hang over the galaxy forever, a tool to kill any human who might ever wake up from cryosleep, a way to keep the fear alive. He needed to destroy it, all of it. Where are they keeping the bioweapons? He asked. The sacred vaults, on the Catharan homeworld. It is the most heavily defended location in the galaxy. Then that is where we are going. The rebel leaders thought he was insane. Attack the Catharan homeworld? Impossible, suicide. But Marcus explained his plan. It was risky. It required perfect timing. It needed luck. But it was human thinking. It might just work. Shakarn provided the security codes. Lyra designed the infiltration route. Marcus assembled a small team of the best fighters. They would go in fast and quiet while the rebel fleet launched a diversionary attack on the outer defense stations. Draw the Catharan attention away from their sacred home. The night before they left, Lyra found Marcus standing alone looking at the stars. You know this is probably a one-way trip, she said. I know. Then why go? You could stay here. Continue teaching us. Lead the rebellion from safety. Marcus smiled sadly. Because I am the only human left. If I do not stop that weapon, then humanity dies with me. Every human still sleeping in cryopods across the galaxy. Every possibility of what my species could become, all gone. I cannot let that happen. You really are a monster, Lyra said softly. But not the kind the Catharan feared. You are a monster because you will not quit. You will not surrender. You will fight impossible odds because it is the right thing to do. That is what scared them. That is what will destroy them. Marcus looked at her. Come with me. I will need a good scientist to make sure we destroy every sample. Lyra nodded. I was hoping you would ask. The mission launched at dawn. A small ship. A small team. Everything depended on speed and surprise. As they jumped toward the Catharan homeworld, Marcus thought about all the humans who had come before him. The colonists, the explorers, the ones who had scared the galaxy so badly. He hoped he could honor their memory, not by being a monster, but by showing that humans could also be heroes. The monster was coming for the Catharan, but this time the monster fought for justice. The Catharan homeworld was beautiful. Green continents, blue oceans, cities that sparkled like jewels. It looked peaceful. But Marcus knew better. This world was built on the bones of conquered species, on lies, on 3,000 years of manufactured fear. Their ship approached under a stolen identity code. Shakarn's credentials got them past the outer checkpoints. They landed at a commercial port far from the sacred vaults. From there, they would need to travel underground through maintenance tunnels. It would take hours. They did not have hours. The diversionary attack would only hold Catharan attention for so long. Marcus led the team through the tunnels. Lyra followed close behind, her scanner showing the route Shakarn had mapped. The other team members were veterans from different slave worlds. All of them had lost family to the Catharan. All of them were ready to die for this mission. They encountered their first patrol near the vault entrance. Catharan guards with heavy weapons. Marcus signaled for the team to wait. He studied their patrol pattern, counted their steps, timed their movements. Then he moved. It was over in seconds, silent, efficient. The guards never knew what hit them. The team took their equipment and moved deeper. They were close now. Marcus could feel it. The heart of Catharan power was just ahead. The sacred vaults were massive, room after room of artifacts, weapons, records, the evidence of 3,000 years of lies. And in the deepest chamber, behind layers of security, sat the bioweapon storage. Lyra worked on the locks while Marcus and the others kept watch. Got it, Lyra whispered. The door hissed open. Inside were rows of containment units. Each one held samples of the virus that had killed humanity, enough to wipe out any humans who might still exist in the galaxy. Marcus felt rage building in his chest. This was what had ended his species. This was what had killed billions. Can you destroy them? He asked Lyra. Yes, but it will trigger alarms. We will have minutes before every guard in the city arrives. Do it. Lyra set up the thermal charges. The virus samples would be incinerated completely. No chance of survival. No chance of recovery. When she triggered the charges, alarms screamed throughout the vault complex. Red lights flashed. Doors sealed. The team was trapped. Time to go, Marcus said calmly. He had planned for this. They moved to a secondary exit. A ventilation shaft that led to the surface. It was not designed for people, but they made it work, pulling themselves up through narrow passages, racing against time. They emerged on a rooftop overlooking the city. Catharan guards were everywhere. Ships filled the sky searching for intruders. The team was outnumbered 1,000 to 1, but Marcus smiled. He activated his communicator. "Now," he said simply. Across the Catharan homeworld, hidden rebel cells activated simultaneously. Not soldiers, just ordinary slaves who had been living in Catharan cities for years, waiting for this signal. They did not attack military targets. They attacked the communication systems, the power grids, the infrastructure. Suddenly, the most heavily defended world in the galaxy was in chaos. At the same time, the rebel fleet stopped their diversionary attack and jumped to the homeworld. They did not come to fight. They came to broadcast. Every screen, every communication device, every display in the Catharan homeworld suddenly showed the same thing. Marcus standing in the sacred vaults, destroying the bioweapons, burning the last tools of genocide. "People of the galaxy," Marcus said to the cameras, "you see me destroying the weapons that killed my species." The Catharan kept these weapons to maintain their power through fear. But fear ends today. I am the last human. I am the monster you were told to dread. But I do not fight to conquer you. I fight to free you. The choice is yours. Stay enslaved, or stand up and take your freedom. The broadcast ended. Marcus and his team fought their way to the extraction point. It was brutal. Team members fell. Marcus took wounds. But Lyra kept them moving, kept them focused. Finally, they reached their ship. As they launched, Catharan fighters pursued them. But the rebel fleet covered their escape. Across the galaxy, the response was immediate. 50 worlds declared independence. Slave populations rose up in coordinated rebellions. Catharan forces found themselves fighting on 100 fronts simultaneously. The empire that had lasted 3,000 years began to crumble in days. The Supreme Hierarch convened an emergency council. The other Catharan leaders were panicking. Their carefully constructed system of control was collapsing. Some wanted to negotiate. Others wanted to use maximum force. The Hierarch listened to them argue, then stood. "We have lost," he said quietly. "The human has done in months what our ancestors feared humans would do in years. He has united our enemies, given them hope, shown them they can win. We cannot fight the entire galaxy. Then what do we do?" One leader asked. "We surrender. We face the truth. We accept the consequences of what our ancestors did." Some in the council protested, but the Hierarch was firm. He knew when a war was lost. He had studied the ancient texts about humanity. Once humans decided to fight for something, they never stopped, never compromised, never gave up. That was what made them monsters. That was what made them dangerous. That was why the galaxy had feared them. And now a human was leading a revolution built on those same principles. Persistence, adaptability, the refusal to accept defeat. The Catharan had created their own nightmare by trying to bury the truth. Now the truth would bury them. Marcus received the surrender offer 3 weeks later. The Catharan would disarm, release all slaves, open their records to public scrutiny. In exchange, they asked only for protection from genocide. They did not want to suffer the fate they had inflicted on humanity. The rebel council debated fiercely. Many wanted vengeance. The Catharan had enslaved their worlds, killed their families. Why show them mercy? But Marcus spoke against revenge. If we kill them all, we become what they feared. We become the monsters. Humanity made many mistakes. But one thing we learned over thousands of years: cycles of revenge never end. Someone has to choose to break the cycle. That someone is us. Lyra stood beside him. He is right. We fought for freedom, not for revenge. If we become conquerors, we are no better than the Catharan. The vote was close, but mercy won. The terms of surrender were accepted. The Catharan Empire ended not with fire and blood, but with acknowledgement of the truth, with promises to make amends. With the slow, painful work of building something better, Marcus stood on a viewing platform watching Catharan soldiers lay down their weapons. Former slaves embraced their freedom. Different species worked together to build new governments, new systems. It was not perfect. There would be problems, conflicts, growing pains, but it was better than what came before. Jakarn approached him. The former overseer looked older, tired. "What will you do now?" he asked. "Search for other humans. There might be more colony ships out there, more people sleeping in cryo. They deserve to wake up in a free galaxy. And after that?" Marcus smiled. "I do not know. Maybe help build this new galaxy. Make sure it does not repeat the old mistakes. Make sure no species ever has to fear monsters again, real or imagined. Shakar nodded. I would like to help. If you will allow it. I have much to atone for. We all do, Marcus said. That is what makes us better than monsters. We can recognize our mistakes. Learn from them. Choose to be better. As the sun set on the former Catharan capital, Marcus thought about humanity, about all they had been, all they might have become. He was the last human, but maybe that was not an ending. Maybe it was a beginning, a chance to show the galaxy the best of what humans could be. Not monsters, not conquerors, but bridges between species, teachers of persistence, champions of freedom. The monster the Catharan feared was gone. In its place stood something far more dangerous to tyrants everywhere. Hope. 5 years passed. The galaxy transformed in ways no one had imagined. The Galactic Council was established. Every species had a vote. Every world had representation. It was messy. Arguments broke out daily. Different species had different needs, different values, but they were working together. Learning to compromise, building something that had never existed before. True democracy on a galactic scale. Marcus served as an advisor but refused any official position. He did not want to be a ruler. He had seen where that path led. Instead, he traveled from world to world, teaching, helping, searching for more humans. In those 5 years, his team found 3 more colony ships. 17 humans woke from cryo-sleep to a galaxy they did not recognize. Marcus helped them adjust, told them the story of what happened, gave them a choice about their future. Lyra became the head of the Galactic Historical Commission. Her job was to preserve truth, to document what really happened, to make sure future generations would know about the lies and the genocide and the revolution. She filled vast databases with records, testimony, evidence, so the past would never be forgotten or twisted again. Jakarn led a Catharan movement called the Reconciliation, former slaveholders working to make amends, rebuilding destroyed worlds, providing reparations, teaching their children the truth about what their ancestors had done. It was slow work, painful work, but necessary. Not all Catharan joined. Some clung to the old beliefs. But enough changed to make a difference. The galaxy debated what humans were. Some still feared them, pointed to the old records of human aggression. Others saw Marcus and his fellow humans as heroes, liberators. The humans themselves tried to stay neutral. They knew their species had been capable of both great good and terrible evil. They did not pretend otherwise. On the anniversary of the revolution, Marcus was asked to give a speech to the Galactic Council. He stood before representatives of thousands of worlds, some who honored him, some who feared him, some who hated what he represented. He looked out at them all and began to speak. 5 years ago, I woke up alone in a galaxy that had forgotten my species. I learned that humans were called monsters, that we had been destroyed for the safety of all. Part of that story was true. My ancestors were dangerous. They were aggressive. They took what they wanted without asking. They made other species afraid. He paused. The council chamber was silent. But humans were also explorers, scientists, artists. We were capable of great kindness and terrible cruelty, just like every species in this room. The Catharan were right to defend themselves against human expansion. But genocide was not defense. It was fear turned into murder. And then they used that fear to control you for 3,000 years. Some council members shifted uncomfortably. Others nodded in agreement. Today we have a choice. We can define ourselves by our worst actions or by our best intentions. Every species here has done terrible things. Every species has also done wonderful things. The question is not what we were. The question is what we will be. He gestured to the diverse crowd of aliens before him. I am the last pure human. There are only 17 others like me in the entire galaxy. We are a dying species. But our ideas do not have to die. The human principles of freedom, democracy, and never surrendering to tyranny. These are not just human values. They belong to everyone who chooses to embrace them. Marcus took a breath. Some of you still fear what humans were. Some of you see us as monsters. Maybe you are right. But if being a monster means refusing to accept injustice, then I will be a monster. If being a monster means fighting for the freedom of others, then call me a monster. If being a monster means believing every species deserves a chance to determine their own future, then yes, I am a monster. The chamber erupted in applause, not from everyone, but from enough. Marcus stepped down from the podium. He had said what needed to be said. The rest was up to them. That night, Marcus stood alone in his quarters looking at the stars. There was a knock on his door. Lyra entered carrying a datapad. "What is it?" he asked. "A signal. Deep space. It matches the signature of human colony ships." Marcus felt his heart race. "How many?" "We cannot tell yet. The signal is weak. Could be one ship. Could be a whole fleet. They are still far away. Years of travel even at maximum speed, and are they awake? Unknown. The signal is automated, a beacon. But if there are humans on those ships, they will eventually wake up. Eventually come looking for a place to settle. Eventually reach this galaxy." Marcus sat down heavily. More humans. Maybe hundreds. Maybe thousands. Coming to a galaxy that still debated whether humanity deserved to exist. What will happen when they arrive? Lyra sat beside him. That depends on what we build between now and then. If we create a galaxy based on fear and control, they will be seen as threats. But if we build a galaxy based on cooperation and understanding, they will be welcomed as long-lost cousins. And if they are the aggressive kind of humans, the ones who take what they want, the ones the Catharan feared, Lyra smiled, then you will teach them the same lessons you taught us. That strength without wisdom leads to destruction. That fear breeds only more fear. That true power comes from lifting others up, not pushing them down. Marcus looked at her, this alien who had become his closest friend, his partner in building a new galaxy. "You really believe we can make this work? All these different species trying to coexist? I believe we must try, because the alternative is to repeat the cycle. Fear leading to hatred, hatred leading to war, war leading to genocide. Someone has to break that cycle. Humans broke it once by choosing mercy over revenge. We can keep it broken by choosing cooperation over conflict." Marcus stood and walked to the window again. Somewhere out there, humans were sleeping, dreaming of a future among the stars. He hoped that when they woke up, they would find a galaxy worth joining. A galaxy that had learned from its mistakes. A galaxy that no longer needed monsters to keep it in line. "We should prepare," he said. "Send expeditions to meet them. Make first contact gentle. Show them what we have built. Give them a choice about their future, just like everyone else. And if the council refuses, if they vote to turn the humans away, then we fight that battle when it comes. But I do not think it will come to that. We have shown them that cooperation works better than domination. That truth is stronger than lies. That freedom is worth fighting for. Those lessons will not be forgotten." Years later, when Marcus was old and gray, the human fleet finally arrived. Not a military force, just colony ships full of families looking for a new home. The Galactic Council debated for weeks. Some wanted to turn them away. Some wanted to quarantine them. But the majority voted to welcome them. Marcus was there when the first shuttle landed. Young humans emerged looking at an alien sky for the first time, scared, hopeful, ready to start new lives. He greeted them with a smile. "Welcome," he said. "You are home." One of the new arrivals, a young woman, looked at him with curiosity. "Are you human? You look different from us." I am from Earth, from a time before you left. I have been waiting for you." "What is this place? What happened here?" Marcus looked around at the assembled crowd. Aliens from 100 worlds standing beside the handful of old humans like him. Former enemies working together, a galaxy learning to be better than its worst impulses. This is what happens when species choose cooperation over conflict, when they face their mistakes instead of hiding from them, when they build bridges instead of walls. And us? What do humans do here? Marcus smiled. "Whatever you want. You are free. That is what we fought for. What we built. Freedom for everyone to find their own path, to make their own choices, to be judged by their actions, not their species." The young woman looked at the alien crowds, at the strange architecture, at the impossible diversity. "They do not fear us? Even after what our ancestors did? Some do, but fear is a choice. And most have chosen to give you a chance. Just as I was given a chance. Just as every species here has been given a chance. We are all capable of being monsters. We are all capable of being heroes. What matters is which we choose to be." That night, Marcus stood one last time looking at the stars. Lyra was gone now, passed peacefully years before. Zakarn too. Most of his old friends had moved on to whatever came next. But their work remained. The galaxy they had built, imperfect, messy, but free. He thought about the journey, from prisoner to revolutionary, from the last human to the bridge between species, from monster to hero. But those were just labels. What mattered was that he had made a choice. To fight not for conquest but for freedom, to choose mercy over revenge, to build instead of destroy. The Catharan had feared the monster. They had enslaved the galaxy to prevent its return. They had kept a human as a curiosity, never realizing they were creating exactly what they feared. But they were wrong about what made humans dangerous. It was not aggression. It was not violence. It was persistence, hope, the absolute refusal to give up when fighting for something right. The monster had awakened. But instead of destroying the galaxy, it had freed it. Instead of spreading fear, it had spread hope. Instead of taking everything, it had given everything. That was the real lesson. That was what would endure. Not the fear of what humans might be, but the example of what they chose to become.